The In It Together with Lori Lynn Green talk show is a positive way to start your day. Ready for some encouragement?
Yeah, let's do it. I'm pumped. Let's let the healing begin.
Come be inspired, hear moving stories, even laugh out loud.
Can't make heads or tail of what I'm saying.
Just incomprehensible.
Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
You'll hear real people doing real things to make a real impact.
You are heroes every day.
Hear honest, compassionate, engaging issues you care about.
You see people come together to do good in our community, and the more we come together, the more good we can do.
Listen in and get started on redesigning your life and hear what's positive in Greater Manchester. Here's your happy host, Lori Lynn Green.
Good morning, friends in Greater Manchester. Welcome to In It Together. We are so glad that you've tuned in. If you'd like to find us on the web, you can go to inittogether.net, listen live, watch our previous shows, even link to our Facebook, our Twitter, our LinkedIn, our YouTube, and so on. And if you like and follow us, you'll see that we are bringing out the best in people to influence a positive change in this community and beyond. Today is a very special community segments today with Real Life Giving's Donna Plourde, the founder of Real Life Giving. And we're going to be talking about sex trafficking and hopefully informing you of how it really happens, what it's about, things around you that where you could recognize it, and perhaps how you can get involved and help stop this horrible, horrible epidemic that we're seeing. But we'll be back right after this brief message, so stay tuned.
Little Leapers and Knowledge Keepers Childcare and Preschool offers learning experiences that give kids a healthy sense of self and meaningful connections to the world around them. We teach children from a positive perspective so they learn healthy conflict resolution and develop character. Owner Jennifer Lever has over 28 years' experience in child development. She's helped children learn to read as young as 18 months. Join our happy place where we make happy happen, located in Pinardville, bordering Bedford and Manchester. Call today at 603-491-1780.
Hi, I'm Lori Lynn Green, advancement strategist and owner of AlphaAdvancementStrategies.com. I've been very successful at helping people overcome stressful situations to get immediate results in their personal and professional lives. At Alpha Advancement Strategies, we provide a non-judgmental and supportive environment, empowering clients to focus more on reaching their goals. You can find us on the web at alphaadvancementstrategies.com or call us at 603-860-9260. Alpha Advancement Strategies is where you invest in yourself.
Hi, I'm Mark Major, certified coach and speaker. Join me Wednesdays at 9 a.m. for It's a Wonderful Life, all about leadership development and living a positive lifestyle. Only on In It Together with Lori Lynn Green.
Welcome back to In It Together, kicking off this lovely Friday morning with Donna Plourde. Good morning, Donna.
Good morning, Lori Lynn. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. It's been such a long time, like about a year or so, right?
I think it might be.
Maybe more. I don't know. We've had so much going on here. As you can see, we're in a different studio. I still have my office down the other end, but we've expanded over here. We're really excited about that, increasing what we're doing here. But enough of us. I've been watching your page. I've been seeing that there's been a lot of breakthroughs, a lot of things happening. I'm going to move this a little closer to you, okay?
Sure.
But here's the thing. Why don't you just give people a little bit of background on how you got involved in Real Life Giving? What got you involved in it? What was the vision? And, a little bit of the journey up to today.
Sure. I'd love to. Back in 2006, it came across my path. I had been, I would say, for a number of years before that, very interested in issues as they apply to women and children in crisis. And back in 2006, when human trafficking first came across my path specifically, I have to say that it really gripped me. And it literally, through the media that I was reading, different websites, reading materials, and just interactions with different individuals, it was something that I couldn't let go of. And I felt God was calling me
Real
to
tug on your
look,
heart, huh?
Yeah, to look deeper.
Yeah.
And so I started praying into that. And Lord, what is that supposed to look like? I live in New Hampshire because, like a lot of people at that time, I thought of it as an international issue.
Always make that assumption.
Which it is, of course, and that's very important. But as I continue to say that to learn more about what was happening and grow in my understanding personally, I found that it absolutely is something that's affecting our own state and is right in our own communities. Because like a lot
I'm
of
so
people,
sorry. I'm hearing an echo
time,
of you, and I can't shut it off. I don't know what's going on. Oh, my goodness. This
is an international issue.
Always. There we go. I think I got it now. I'm so sorry.
No worries. No worries.
So, yeah, honestly, when you first came, it's so far removed from our thinking here in New Hampshire and the way we live. We don't even, a lot of the things we're seeing in the community, the outreaches and things, are things that we didn't think would ever come here. The first thing we always think of when we're happy and we're living normal is that would never happen here, or that would never happen to us. That's true for a lot of the topics that we talk about on this program. So one of the first things I thought of was, oh, yeah, that's something that happens in like those big cities like New York or California, or even maybe closer to the southern border or something. We never even think about how, well, just like drugs, we never even think about how it can work its way up into little old New England. So there are a lot of things. And so one of my biggest questions for you is, what have been some of the misunderstandings about sex trafficking? What have been some of the things that people are just not aware of? I mean, I've learned some of them, but I want from you, but I want to hear you tell us.
I think that's really important, Lori Lynn. To begin any conversation about trafficking, you really have to understand what it is and what it's not, because there's a lot of misunderstanding and there's a lot of misrepresentation. To the point where actually I've had survivors that I know share that they didn't recognize trafficking even while they were in it at the time, because media representations, it's, for example, a survivor that I know said, well, I wasn't abducted, or I was never in chains. And a lot of pictures that you see or media portrayals might, just for example, the movie Taken. A lot of people are familiar with that. And that's certainly not the way it most often plays out. And so having an understanding of sex trafficking specifically being an issue where an individual is compelled to perform a commercial sex act through force, fraud, or coercion.
Now, explain that, because I think this is part of the part that kind of makes the disconnect for people.
Absolutely. A commercial sex act, I think most of us, when we think of that, we think of prostitution, and that would be right.
Right.
But it is beyond that. It can include pornography. It can include stripping. One of the biggest areas that's expanding is webcamming, where an individual will perform in a certain way, and the payment is facilitated online. Any of those things, we may think that someone's there of their own volition, but that is not always the case. I know women who were filmed during their trafficking circumstance, and that was uploaded online. So some pornography can be trafficking victims, of course.
And many times it's trafficked not where they locally live, but around the world, right?
It can be, but it can be right in their own state.
It can
or
be, because I was wondering if people would recognize, like they would probably. I would assume they wouldn't want people to recognize the person, so I don't know. But I don't know.
No, that's a good point for sure.
Yeah.
Even here in the U.S., let me just give you a statistic. 83% of confirmed cases of sex trafficking that are in the U.S., that is. So 83% of confirmed sex trafficking cases in the United States involve American citizens. And so many times we think that it's only, again, an international issue, or it's happening to foreign nationals, which indeed it is. Here in the U.S., but it's not. Because of that, we don't always think that it could be literally someone that's coming into the healthcare clinic where I work, or coming to a friend of mine who's a survivor. Let me just give you a statistic.
Keeps doing that. I remember hearing a story last year, very interesting. I remember hearing a story about a woman who was trying to come to America for work. She had a bachelor's degree in some kind of business background. And so she was connecting with American employers to suppose she felt she was connecting to them. But again, the internet, you don't know who you're connecting with. She felt she was connecting to an American employees, and they set up a thing for her to come to get to work. But when she got here to the airport, somebody picked her up, drove her down the road. She had to switch cars, and it just she started to feel uncomfortable and knew something was wrong. Fortunately for her, she ended up getting out of it, but she was brought into this brothel home where she was having to do sex acts with people and stuff, and they wouldn't let her go. They had, I think they even might have given her drugs, which made her dependent and addicted and dependent on them for them. And then after that, somehow she got away. But she was there for a couple of years before she could get away and tell her story. But it was very eye-opening to read that last year, because I realized that there are, people all over the world who are trying to, make it life somewhere else or whatever. And then so they try to set it up ahead of time. And these things are so big where they can, like I said, pick someone up at the airport, get another car to pick you up, bring you somewhere else. But she said they drove for hours. And she didn't know where she was going. But they figure, hey, nobody's going to know her here. She's not going to have anybody that's going to be wondering where she is.
Right. I believe that we can absolutely come to the conclusion, or have seen in the work that's being done out there, that whether it's labor trafficking or sex trafficking, many times the terms and conditions of the labor itself, the work or the wage or the experience,
it's all intertwined, isn't it?
Is misrepresented. And the individual doesn't know necessarily what they're agreeing to.
And I think that's the danger. And like you had mentioned the movie Taken. This nice family, and the daughter thinks she's not situationally aware. She's still young, a little naive. Of course, her father knows more because he's been in that kind of field of work. But I think that's where we get to come in and bring some awareness, even locally. This is where I really want to focus today a little bit, is some of the things that are going on locally. I've heard you tell me some of them, but I really would like you to put it in an order that makes sense, where people can understand and maybe begin to recognize when trafficking is going on.
I think it's important to know that trafficking is really the exploitation of vulnerability. And so traffickers, I'm going to speak to sex trafficking specifically in this case, but traffickers, they know what they're looking for. They're looking for, as I said, vulnerabilities they can exploit, such as someone may have abuse in their background, whether that's physical, sexual, emotional, verbal abuse. They may have a history of running away, being homeless.
Right.
There could be exposure to drugs, whether they're taking drugs themselves, and that situation can be exploited in itself. But also sometimes young people are growing up in homes where it's normalized. Right. So that can absolutely be the case. And some of the other things are, certainly financial insecurity that can contribute, lack of options in the sense of job skills and education.
That's it. They're looking for a place of vulnerability. Isn't that the case every time someone becomes a victim of anything? There's always a perpetrator looking for a certain...
Right.
It's kind of like, and I'm going to attribute this as an entrepreneur, as a business person, where it's just it's business in a wrong field. But they have this profession that they're a trafficker, a sex trafficker, and they have a target audience. And that's how they look for a certain type, the vulnerable, the weak, and they prey on them. And as you've been on with Bob on personal safety, these people are cowards. They are cowards. People who would prey on the innocent, the weak, the vulnerable. That's the most horrible thought that I can think of. Especially as a mother, when you think about your children, and we're talking about people's children here. We're talking about people's wives, people's sisters, or even boys. People don't realize boys are also a part of this.
And so whether that's someone who's, aren't we all looking for relationships and affection?
Or love and connection, right? Like
exactly.
gangs are the same thing.
We're built for that,
That's
right?
right.
Or situations where we have an immediate need, where we maybe our family situation is such that we had to leave. And so what do you do to support yourself? How do you find shelter? How do you find a safe place to stay or have your food needs met, for that matter?
Right.
There are so many ways that they can step into a role as that provider or that romantic partner. There's a lot of different ways that can play out. Absolutely.
It can, and it can be, it can be, I've seen this before where, older men may groom younger girls and talk to them and be like a father figure, a picture of stability or protection or safety, because that's the natural, and I know I'm just talking about girls at this moment, but I know there's boys as well. But see, that scenario can be played out no matter who it is, right? It's always this, we find someone who's weak and vulnerable. We find out what that vulnerability is. Again, it's like marketing. What's the pain, right? You find their pain, and then you begin to sell them what they need.
Exactly. More and more, well, traffickers, for one thing, are going to be where those targets are. So that can be something as simple as being at the mall or a coffee shop. It can be certainly being outside of a group home setting or recovery center.
Right.
But it can also be increasingly online. And, think about it. Some people are verbal processors, which is great when you're one-on-one with a safe person that you can trust.
Sure.
But maybe not so much when we're sharing on social media that we're really upset with our parents and just had this argument, or perhaps we've broken up with a romantic partner. And that's something that they can take a look at and go, oh, I hear you. I'm so sorry you had to go through that. And then it evolves to, I'm the one that gets you. I'm here for you.
Right.
And that relationship can begin that way, where that little bit of trust is built, and they can take some time. It's a grooming process, really.
And it really comes down to, there are many of us who are fortunate enough to have a community around us when we're having a hard time, but there are many people who don't. We see it throughout the community where there's a lot of people homeless and destitute. And these people are no different than us, other than the fact that they got to a place where they didn't have that community. Because I got to tell you, and maybe you can attest to this, I did not get where I am in life without having community around me, because I've had a lot of things happen. And if I hadn't, I don't know where I would be. It's by the grace of God we have that. And this is why, we need community. And I think even especially those who know God and have the love of God as community. And when we receive that, we begin to be a vessel of doing that, which is what you're doing. You're going out to reach people with the blessings you have. You're going out to reach others and be a blessing to.
Well, the next thing that usually happens once someone's targeted and maybe there's a grooming process that's now begun is isolation. It's exactly what you just said, Lori Lynn. If they don't have a support network, that would be one thing. If they happen to have that, they're going to draw them away if they can, because you know what? It's those people in our lives, whether it's family or friends, that are going to recognize that there are changes going on. There's something happening here. Isolating is important to be able to.
And this is what happens when you find somebody that has a pain or a problem or something, and they don't have the community there to get it when it's small. Because this is what happens. Something happens, and nobody has support, and it just gets worse and worse. Before you know it, it becomes their way of life, and now they become reactors, and they're more vulnerable to be trafficked, right? To sex, and get into that world,
right?
And not even by consciously knowing it.
Yes, exactly. And I think the point you made earlier is really key to reiterate as well. While certain groups are more at risk and may have more vulnerability, ultimately it can be anyone. It can be any age, any gender, any socioeconomic status, any race, a nationality.
We're finding that a lot of the problems that our outreaches around here are serving, that's the case. There is, we all had these stigmas, if they were just not there, or if they were this, but there are people who are actually taken from where they are, like the movie Taken. The girl went on a trip, and then she was trafficked from there. And so it's the situational awareness aspect is going to be a very important part of this. Now, we got to take a short break, but when we come back, I was hoping that maybe you could take us through the process of what Real Life Giving does as far as educating the community, but also what it does is direct help for people who experience sex trafficking.
Absolutely.
All right, great. So we're going to be back right after this brief message. Everybody just stay tuned and support those who support us. Thank you.
CrossNet Inc. offers computer and IT services for commercial clients as well as local personal users. We create tailor-made plans for your business's unique needs, from computer repairs to managing networks, servers, and desktops. CrossNet Inc. offers managed services, data backups, virus protection, web filtering, and more. For more information, go to crossnetinc.com or call for your personalized IT services today at 603-589-2520. CrossNet Inc. IT services that keep your business running when you're on the run. Mark Major knows that great coaches need constant training to be effective. As a certified coach, teacher, and speaker with the John Maxwell team, Mark can help you identify and activate your personal and professional goals. If you seek to do more and be more, look up Mark on the web at johnmaxwellgroup.com/MARC-major or call 603-674-6818. Mark Major, growing leaders and adding value.
Hi, I'm Jen Lever, anchor of the Recovery Now segments. Join me Tuesdays at 9 a.m. where I offer support to families struggling with addiction. Hear personal stories, learn the signs of addiction, and get help for your loved ones. Only on In It Together with Lori Lynn Green.
Back to In It Together in the midst of one of our community segments with Donna Plourde from Real Life Giving, talking about sex trafficking this morning. And, some of the we've talked about some of the reasons or the mindsets of what how it's looked at. But now Donna's going to tell us a little bit about what her organization does. I mean, who's part of your team? What would be, if you found somebody being trafficked, what would be the steps that you go through? And maybe somebody listening today is someone who is trafficked or knows someone, and you want to take us through that on how they would get help. And
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, when we began, Lori Lynn, we became a nonprofit in 2012. And at first, as you were saying earlier, we did focus on awareness and training because until people know that there's a problem, it's hard to get anything else to move forward as far as support and,
that's it.
And move into those areas for sure. So we did that, and we continue to do that because that's really important to just make those connections with individuals in the community as well as professionals that need to know what this looks like. How to identify it and what we can do about it. But beyond that, a few years ago, we started our street outreach. And that was a way that we could connect directly with some of the vulnerable people that we knew were in our community. And handing out personal care items in little gift bags, and also having coffee, hot chocolate in the cooler months.
It gives you a way to meet them.
Right, exactly, a point of connection.
Yeah.
And that facilitated every now and then. Some people were happy to have the bag, and just seeing us on a consistent basis broke down a little bit of those barriers. But others were even more willing to start sharing little bits of their story, and some trust was built. And we started to identify fairly early on that one of the gaps that we were seeing in the city or in the state really was a bridge kind of option where, we're out in a neighborhood that has a lot of exploitation going on. And we're meeting some individuals, whether they're experiencing exploitation currently, they're certainly at risk one way or the other. So how do we help them? So, we, of course, hence the outreach and starting to make those connections. But to further be that bridge to services and resources we know are available in the community.
Right. Yeah.
We thought that was very important. But we identified that, having a safe place for women just women, where they feel comfortable and welcomed in a non-judgmental atmosphere and can have some of those tangible needs met, but also have people who can come alongside with compassion and empathy. And we have developed some programs. Debbie Wheeler is our program director, and we've been working.
She's great.
She is, absolutely. And we've been working hard to get some programs off the ground, such as getting certification to do a class called Ending the Game, which is a national program specifically for women who have identified as women who have experienced exploitation or trafficking. And
they would be the ones that would understand that world enough to say what, maybe help you know how to approach it, right?
Right. Well, it also helps survivors of trafficking or exploitation recognize the manipulation. It's basically what's called a coercion resiliency program, and what I mean by that is what are some of the tactics that were used, and through that it brings freedom from. It wasn't a choice. So often they're made to feel that it was their choice, and that adds another layer.
It's kind of a messed up
another
thing,
layer of shame and stigma. But also to prevent re-exploitation because of the vulnerabilities that are there, to recognize the tactics.
You know, just to bring this more personal, I'm sure there are people listening. Sometimes there are young women who have had a family member or something sexually abused them as a child, and they keep it secret. It's a similar thing where, well, it's my fault. I must have done something wrong. When the adult was really responsible.
That's right.
With the trust. And I need to say that for those who might be listening who feel that way. If maybe they're in that situation and they feel like that's their fault.
Absolutely. That's a really important
point
and a good analogy.
Yeah.
Another program that we have developed, because we are seeing women that are very, very vulnerable, and some of whom are living on the street or homeless. And so we knew that starting with a even more basic level would be important. So Debbie has worked really hard to establish a new program called Journey Towards Hope and Safety. And what that does is it's specifically for women where safety, like tangible right now, some of those things that need to be addressed, as in coping skills and learning to, self-awareness, de-escalating in a situation, how to turn off a cycle of negative self-talk, building resiliency, and giving them some real tools.
Helping to be confident in their life rather than a victim. Like, it's hard to get out of victim mentality when you've been a victim and you haven't had any...
Right.
You don't have any.
And this is aimed at women who there's a possible chance that they've been exploited. But even broader than that, we've had a number of women just say that they have a deep level of anxiety they're dealing with, and addiction issues and trauma that they've experienced. So that program is to help on that immediate basic level.
I would imagine, someone who's gone through this and who it is traumatic, and because of that, like coming back into the real world where everybody's happy and fine, it must be really difficult to just even assimilate, to just I don't even know where I fit.
Well, a lot of people, I believe, whether they were trafficked perhaps previously or currently, they don't see an option or a way out many times, because what are the choices? If I were to leave today, what are the resources that are available? What would that even look like? And so that's one of the reasons that we want to be there for helping with, for example, one of the things that we do is so many don't have ID. So helping them access important documents, whether it be their license or their birth certificate, and other information that's going to be helpful. But
so they can get back into society. There's a woman I just want to address. I just want to thank all of our listeners via internet radio and live streaming. We do welcome your comments, your questions, or even insights. Maybe there's a woman on here who said that there are not many people talking about this right now. She said that Ohio is the most trafficked state. Is this true? I mean,
I know it's one of the top states.
One of the top.
And I've heard varying statistics as far as which one is number one. And I think,
we
honestly, that can probably be fluid.
Yeah.
Right. But it definitely is seeing a lot of activity. And who would have thought?
Yeah, well, here's an interesting thing. I love that we can reach people, all over. And this isn't talked about enough. Like you said, the awareness, it's been like an uphill thing, making people aware of this and how it can be happening in your own town. Speaking of our own town, in Manchester, you told us some of the things you're doing by going out, doing some outreach and things like that. Have you been able to find people who are in trafficking, and what are some of the steps that you've brought them through?
Well, many times it takes quite a long time in building that relationship.
Yes.
For someone to either be able to disclose or even recognize that they are actually a victim.
Because their mind doesn't, they don't know.
Yeah. Because of all the manipulation that's involved.
That is their world now.
Exactly.
So they don't see the difference.
And so one of the reasons we felt that opening a day center was really important is to continue to develop those relationships, help with those immediate needs that they have, and start to have conversations and just asking questions, not in an intrusive way, but just helping them to, I guess, a process of self-discovery to some degree.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it, because that's really what it is for all of us. As I was thinking about this morning, a lot of the topics we cover here, last week we were talking about pornography and the connection of pornography and sex trafficking, because in light of a recent story we heard in the news. But it comes down to realizing that we all are in recovery. So it's helping people recover their life, not just stop the heinous thing from happening to them, but to recover their life, spirit, soul, and body, right? And make them whole again. So then that takes some time. It takes some trust building. It takes some people just loving them to that place. And it's hard to put it. You can't just put it all in one basket and say, okay, we do this, this, and this, I'm sure. It's like we are love in action, and we're going to see a need and meet a need, and whatever that situation looks like, right?
And two of the major needs that trafficking victims that we have had interaction with, but across the board really have mentioned and are very, very tangible needs, are housing, safe housing, and also employment. And there are so many limited options. When you think about it, if you have been in a situation where you've been exploited for a number of years, you don't have a resume, you don't have a skill set, you may have a criminal record. There are huge hurdles to being able to just, I think I'll go out and get a job. Isn't, without help is not going to happen that easily.
And I will just tell you and extend this to you as well. Obviously by profession, you know that I'm a Christian life coach. And so a lot of people come to me feeling that way when they have, but I think coaching would be a great part of this,
Absolutely.
And which is probably part of what you're doing, but helping people find out that it's not that they don't have any skills, or it's just discovering what they are.
Right. The idea, so much has been expected from them.
Right.
That the idea that they actually have a choice and can start to get to a place where they can think about, what are my dreams? What are my goals? What would I like to do? And then connecting with other people in our community and other ministries, for that matter, that are also working towards helping people get a good start as far as employment, and even explore some options that may be out there. Absolutely. And we can also make connections to long-term residential programs if and when they're ready for that.
Right.
There are some great ones that are available in New England, but also sometimes if someone's interested, there are programs that are in different states. And sometimes, getting away from your own immediate circumstances can be a real
So do you have
blessing.
Do you have a network of other organizations in other areas? I'm sure you do. And so you could probably help each other with resources and things like that.
Right. Right now in New Hampshire, there is no long-term safe housing situation or, home or any beds for that matter that are dedicated specifically to human trafficking survivors. Someone, if they need to be in the state, can certainly go to a crisis center, but that's not necessarily, a situation where a trafficking person may always feel as comfortable in a mixed population of other women, mind you, of course, but they're dealing with various things. And because there's so much misunderstanding about what trafficking is and what an individual may have experienced, that can be a good fit, but it can sometimes not be. There are other programs as well. For example, some of the long-term programs that we have here that work with a variety of issues, such as New Life or House of Hope, which is opening out in Keene. There is a group in New Hampshire that have established an absolutely wonderful board. They're working towards opening a safe long-term residential program in the Lakes area. It'll be a while before, there's so many pieces that have to come into place. Of course, funding, but also getting all of your programming ready, because in a situation like that, it's not just housing itself and food and other necessities, of course, but it also involves skills training and mental health care and healthcare itself.
It's educating those who would be those that would be the caretakers and the ones that would help. They would need to know. Now, Donna, we have only a couple minutes left, so I want to give you an opportunity to encourage our listeners in how they can get involved, how they can help. I'm going to give you the floor and let you do that. So,
well, thank you. I appreciate that because the women that are coming. One of the women that we work with, who's been coming to our center fairly regularly, is I'm so grateful. She said this the other day. I'm so grateful for this place where I feel safe and welcome. I feel like I can be the best version of myself here.
That's a great testimony.
And it is. And we were so blessed to hear that. And we want to be able to expand our services. Right now, we're open Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays from 1 to 4. But as we build capacity with volunteers, and we do offer training for that.
Where are you located?
We're on Lowell Street here in Manchester.
Okay.
Walkable from many of the areas where the women that we already have connections with are.
Okay.
So it works out really well in that, very accessible, I guess you could say. So there are opportunities to come on board if people would like to be part of that. And some of that can just look like having conversations, a cup of coffee, doing some art with the women. They love doing that. And
also helping bring awareness in wherever they are too, right?
Exactly, because I feel an informed and engaged community is key to really addressing this issue. There's no question. So when we do a training, whether that applies to your life as a professional perhaps, or as a volunteer for an organization that works with vulnerable people, or as someone who wants to come alongside Real Life Giving, absolutely the training is important. But I do want to say too that there are other opportunities to affect change as it applies to trafficking. We have other volunteer opportunities that we would love to share with people. And some of those are, what are some professional skills that someone might have? Like, for example, I have a young woman in my life who's done graphic design for us before. And that's her way of helping. Or, you know what, sometimes prevention is key. So those who volunteer for youth organizations, in Manchester we have Roca Kids. How awesome is that?
Right.
And
I have some ideas that maybe we'll end up talking about after the show to see how we can continue to help your efforts here as well. We are unfortunately out of time. So can you give some contact information?
Absolutely. Okay. I would welcome any email. I'm just Donna at reallifegiving, all one word, .org. Feel free to contact me. And also take a look at our website, reallifegiving.org. There is a Take Action page, and they can get some ideas there.
All right, excellent. Thank you so much, Donna. All right, well, that concludes today's community outreach. If you want to join me on Monday, yes, yours truly, for The Good Life, where I can help you move forward in your life, join us at 9 a.m. on Monday. And in the process, or in the meantime, have a blessed weekend. And remember, we are in it together.